You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych
Welcome
with
into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
So we're going to do this again.
We're going to do it one more time.
All right, let's do it. Once more, dear friends.
Once more.
Unleash the dogs of war.
Yeah.
Or I haven't.
But you don't want to revisit our pre-show conversation.
Never.
If
I'm not on the clock, I'm not getting paid. I don't have to be responsible for what I say.
You were a little exacerbated.
Passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word I would use.
Exasperated. You might have been both. Exacerbated and exasperated. You might have been both. Yeah. But that would actually.
Otherwise, obnoxious.
Yeah, exasperated would actually be congruent with the topic of conversation.
Oh, how so?
Well, we're going to talk about how not to be exasperated.
I thought we were going to talk about how to go to sleep.
Well, yeah, I think it all goes into the same pot at some point.
Well, that's a convenient excuse for you.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much that you used breathing techniques in therapy or whether or not you have ever practiced these things. So first off, let's just talk a little bit about how I actually engage regularly in these kind of breathing exercises as a form of meditation throughout the day, but specifically before I go to sleep. And so this is something that I believe in very, very strongly, but I don't know if you kind of think this is new wave and kind of...
You know, you woke liberals just caused me so much stress.
I know. That's why I'm throwing it out there. Although I've never promoted a political doctrine as far as people on this show know.
There are other ways to be woke, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
You can do that whole meditation.
I know.
Yeah. No, I've never done those things.
Okay. Do you believe in
too busy living my life.
Your best life.
Righteousness.
Your best life.
Absolutely. Amen.
Your best life.
Yeah.
I will tell you that the government will pry my gas stove from my dead cold hands.
Well, if they take your stove away, it might be a dead cold hand.
It may be.
Yeah. Oh, let's chase another rabbit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but again, do you believe that there is legitimacy to these things? You've never done them, but do you believe there's any legitimacy?
Yes, I think there is.
Okay.
I think I've seen benefits for people that do believe, just like religion.
Mm-hmm.
If, in my experience, as a therapist, people who have a religious foundation, whatever it is, for how they anchor their life and understand their experiences, moral choices, what have you, seem to survive hard times easier than people who don't have a similar foundation.
Gotcha.
So if you have an anchor, behavioral repetition, the meditation, concentration, sleep patterns, exercise patterns, whatever it is, that works for you, then I want to know about it and I want to know how that works and be respectful of it because we can use that to your good in therapy. If you don't use those things, okay, I might suggest, for instance, journaling. A lot of therapists really, and this article recommends journaling. I've never journaled. To me, it's not, like we did a podcast recently on learning styles. That's not my style for reducing interior stress or to have an interior monologue. But for some people, it works really, really well. It's beneficial. So my job as a therapist isn't to impose something on you. It's to hear you when you say, well, I do this, or to suggest you, what if you did this? If you tried this, if it taught you a breathing rhythm for relaxation, would you try it and see if it benefits you?
Right.
A conversation that I had recently with someone was about thought stopping, because they have these intrusive thoughts about how bad they are and how bad they've been and how that interferes with their ability to ever be good and make better choices. And I was encouraging them to do thought stopping. When that starts to happen, you need to stop it. And the way to stop it is just say, John, stop. Don't go there. Stop that perseverance of that kind of thought. Think about something else. Do something else. Count to 10, take a shower, read a book, quote the Gettysburg Address, do something different than sitting here talking about how bad you are.
So would you see those things, whether it's exercise, whether it's breathing techniques, whether it's journaling, so would you see those things as primarily therapeutic because they have value to the human experience, or would you say that you see those things more as placebo, but even if they're placebo,
No, I
they're
think
still
they have
okay?
value. I can't tell you how many times in a therapeutic session when someone is truly emotionally distraught, I have to remind them to breathe.
Yeah.
And how useful it is as a clinician to be trained to notice their breathing pattern, whether they're breathing or not, if they're breathing quick and fast, if they're breathing slow and deep, and to recognize in each individual modality how that seems to impact you.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ways that you are trained as a clinician to intercede in the cases of anxiety that's overwhelming somebody is match your breathing pattern to theirs, and then quietly slow it down. Now, you can tell them, hey, I'm going to do this, we're going to do this, watch, this works, or you just do it. But either way, you need to know about it, and you need to be able to do it because it's a useful tool clinically to have.
Right.
And I'm not interested in teaching the client the philosophy of meditation. I want them to acquire a skill set where they feel mastery and self-control over their panic. And it may be useful to talk about, well, where'd that come from? How'd you know that? How's that work? And it may be just blah, blah, ginger, just background noise.
Right.
To have that discussion.
Right.
The thing is that as the provider, the clinician, my job is to offer the possibility that you can acquire a tool that helps you have mastery in your life. And so if that's meditation, if that's reading poetry out loud, if that's climbing a rope, great. Whatever works for you. Somebody I know that goes to a climbing wall and climbs to get physically active and work through stress. So when they get all agitated, they go climb the climbing wall.
But I really like the point that you were making in the language that you were using about mastery of your life, that people who feel more in control of their own existence are going to be people who are going to be more confident.
Yeah, it's not fate happening to me.
Yeah.
I got behaviors here I can use to help.
Right. And so if that is a part of what this process is, to help these individuals to feel more confident and have more mastery.
And when you become frozen from despair or pain, one of the things I'll say to you is, Mike, breathe. Breathe with me. And I'll breathe and ask you to breathe with me, match my breathing. But I'll watch you and say, you need to take a breath. Now, please. And even if you're crying, if you're raging, if you're ranting, I said, Mike, catch your breath. Not as a judgment of negativity. You catch a breath, but as a functional skill. You recognize your body's doing this. Let's calm it down.
And so the article that I sent you was on a breathing technique called the 4-7-8 technique. And so in the 4-7-8 technique, the goal is to breathe in for a 4 count, hold your breath for a 7 count, and then exhale for an 8 count. You breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, which is typical kind of meditation.
If you're really in a hurry, you can go 2, 4, 6, 8.
No. No, you can't. But what I will say is that this method is a little bit different. I've traditionally been a big proponent of the breathe in for a number, whether it's 2, 4, 6, and then out for a double number. So, 8, 12, whatever. So if you breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. If you breathe in for 6, out for 12.
But the cognitive reframing or refocusing for this is to get you out of the anxiety mode where it's like popcorn going off in your head into concentrating on counting and breathing and the 3 elements. There's three stages here. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. If you're physically concentrating on that and mentally concentrating on that, your anxiety is not running wild. So you quiet yourself down.
Yes, that is correct. That is the cognitive reframing aspect of it. But I also think that there are very real physiological aspects.
Absolutely.
The difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Then do you go into all that with your client? Let's talk about the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes, you do. But
I don't.
You would not.
I would not.
Right. But I do believe
I'll be sympathetic enough for him.
That there is real.
Oh, I agree. They're physiological.
Physiological.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but it's not therapy.
Yeah. Okay, you just went off on a diatribe about how people having mastery is a positive thing. So why isn't knowledge a part of helping them to gain mastery?
Well,
If
it might
they-
be for some people.
Yeah.
If I'm working with you as a client, I'm going to tolerate your need for this and maybe facilitate it because that's part of how your mind works.
Well-
if I'm working with somebody else that doesn't work that way,
Right.
I'll never bring it up.
But I also think that people who come to me and stay with me over a long haul,
Learn to
a
dance to
part
your rhythm.
of
Learn to do it.
that they also that they find that beneficial, that is helpful for them, and that's why there are different therapists, just as there are.
Yeah, we serve a different market.
Right.
Exactly.
And so there are some people who do get something out of that expansion of the knowledge base that I think is actually therapeutically beneficial.
Okay. I'm teasing you
Yeah.
in some respects because we've had this conversation for 30 years. I respect that people function differently
Right.
than I do.
Oh, and I don't take any offense by what you, because
I
I
know
know
that.
that you and I,
Yeah.
we have this discussion, but there are people out there that don't know that we're just jibbing each other.
right.
And so I want people to
Yeah.
feel confident that there are differences in the way that
And
people.
style and content,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
focus. It's like, I remember words matter,
Mm-hmm.
labels matter. If you give something a label and you put a word to it, then you can find it and
Mm-hmm. Right.
you can manipulate it.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's just a mass of something.
Right.
So if we're talking about anxiety management, there are lots and lots of people. This is a very anxiety-laden time. Our society, our culture, the realities of our life are causative for anxiety.
No question.
When your system is malfunctioning because the anxiety levels are too high, we need to do something about it. And some people do it with medication, whether it's prescribed medication or self-medication. Some people do it with self-hypnotic routines, literally self-hypnosis, or watching TV shows. I was with a friend the other day that does a lot of babysitting for their grandkids, and one of the things that this friend shared with me was that they had discovered that while they and the grandkids are watching a Disney cartoon, everybody's quieter, more relaxed, and calmer, and including the adult. Like, hey, I've learned to enjoy this because it's a quiet time for me. That didn't work for me. There's other things I do instead. I don't go and watch Disney cartoons as
Right.
a way to relax.
Right.
But my friend does, and their children do, and so good for them. If I know that clinically, I can use it clinically.
So relaxation is a
Whatever
good
form. Yeah.
right label to give that, and that's what we are trying to
Yeah, it's
promote.
not shame-based, it's not amusing, it's not stupid, it's not judgmental. It's like, okay, does this work for you? And fine. And maybe I'll have other clients that come in, it will work for them too, and I might suggest it to some of them. What you were saying is, it works for you and your clients to have the long physiological scientific explanation that leads to understanding. I'm saying I'm a little more experiential than that.
So let's go to our break,
Yeah.
and when we come back, I want to talk just a little bit about what the physiology is.
If you can say it, you can talk.
Okay. Hey, Brett,
Yes.
what's your favorite thing about Psych with Mike?
The opportunity to engage in mental gymnastics with you.
Wow, that is really powerful. So,
It's fun.
do you think that that's beneficial for other people?
I have no clue. I would hope so, but I have no clue.
So people should write us and let us know.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be great.
Especially if they agree with me.
As always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. So the jumping off point for me when we talk about breathing techniques is to say to people, if you saw somebody hyperventilate on an airplane, what would the flight staff do to try and
Probably give you a paper bag and ask you
they
to breathe in.
give you a paper bag?
Yeah.
And so why does that work?
I don't know.
So because when you breathe shallowly,
Were you hoping I would say that?
no.
Oh,
I mean, I was hoping you would know,
chance to elucidate.
but when you breathe shallowly, what you do is build up oxygen in your system. That overabundance of oxygen triggers your sympathetic nervous system, which operates on what's called the HPA, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis.
I've heard of that.
Yes, and that is what fight or flight is
It's not like
the
the World War II axis.
activation of the HPA axis.
Germany, Japan,
Yes,
Italy.
which in old nomenclature was called the arousal state. So when we used to talk about stress, the arousal state was the activation of the HPA axis. But what you end up with is a bunch of adrenaline in your system, which is good if you are facing an emergency, but
Flight
not
or
good
fight,
to
right.
relax.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, therefore, is activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which turns the sympathetic nervous system off. And the way that we do
That works perfectly because I'm so calm now. I was really getting agitated.
And now
listening
you're-
to your explanation.
Good.
You're just going on and on.
because you build up carbon dioxide. So when you put the paper bag over your mouth, you're rebreathing your own air. That creates an abundance of carbon
I have to
dioxide
put a paper bag over my head. a
and
couple times.
activates the parasympathetic
Different
nervous system.
activities, though. Yeah.
Different activities.
Absolutely.
So that's why these breathing techniques. So I've always been a follower of the breathe in for a 4 count, out for an 8 count, but basically doubling the time that you breathe out, because that allows more carbon dioxide to build up in the system. This way of breathing in for 4, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8 allows even more carbon dioxide to build up in the system, and that creates a activation of the parasympathetic nervous system that we experience as calm. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if it's connection or not. Years and years ago, I had a respiratory virus. Mm-hmm. Didn't know I had it, but what happened is my throat would close and I couldn't breathe. And I thought I was dying. I literally thought I was dying. I was gasping, trying to breathe. My dog got all excited and started barking. My wife was taking a shower upstairs. She heard the dog barking, and she comes out and said, "What's going on?" She said, I'm collapsed on the floor. I literally passed out.
Wow.
So she called an ambulance, and they took me to the hospital. They brought in a respiratory therapist. Mm-hmm. He said, you have a virus. We have a treatment for it. We'll get that taken care of. But if it happens to you again, what you need to do is not breathe in. You need to breathe out. Mm-hmm. You have too much oxygen already in your system, and you're trying to gasp more in. There's no room for it.
Right.
So your system shuts down, you pass out. He said, so then he worked with me on breathing out slowly and smoothly, even as I'm panicking and thinking I'm going to die because I'm trying to get oxygen. I mean, it's just counterintuitive and paradoxical. But what he taught me was what you're trying to teach me, which is in those times, if you can get yourself to breathe out slowly,
Right.
you create room
Right.
for you to inhale and get fresh oxygen in.
Right.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So as you were saying all that, I was wondering, is that the connection that I can make to understand?
Absolutely. And the issue is that, well, for a lot of us, we think that the point of breathing is to get oxygen into the system, which is partially
it's
the
part
point
of it.
of breathing.
Yeah.
But people need far less oxygen in their system than they think. So the way that I got into this was through diving. So when I started scuba diving, I got into what's called free diving, which is where you dive without a tank.
Right.
And people who dive without a tank can dive deeper because they don't have to worry about compression.
Right.
So people who dive without a tank can dive
So they won't get
several
narcosis
hundred
or the
feet.
bends.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas people who dive with a tank, unless you're doing very, very exotic kinds of air and timing, you can only dive to 100 feet or so. So the reason why the free divers, or the training that they go through, is to condition themselves to become more comfortable with the buildup of carbon dioxide in their system, because you don't need that much oxygen. And the average person can generally only hold their breath for about 35 seconds. Like if you hold your breath, stick your face in the sink full of water, you can probably hold your breath for about 35 seconds. But people who do pearl diving in Papua New Guinea and other places can routinely hold their breath for 12 minutes. And the reason is because they have conditioned themselves to not freak out when their brain says, oh, we don't have enough oxygen. They tell themselves, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
So is that regulated breathing or is that regulated thinking?
It starts with regulated breathing because you have to go through the process of conditioning the body physiologically.
Okay.
And then...
It's an acquired skill.
Yes.
And the end result of that is teaching you to recognize when the trigger of anxiety starts to overwhelm your system physiologically.
Right.
You can breathe in a calm and measured way.
That's right.
And quiet it down.
Or not even breathe at all in the case of people who are diving. But the point is that when the brain triggers that gasp for air response, what's happening is that's activating the sympathetic nervous system. When your sympathetic nervous system gets activated, your sympathetic nervous system says, give me oxygen, give me oxygen, give me oxygen.
I feel so much calmer now that I know all that.
And what you want to do is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which always overrules the sympathetic. Everybody's parasympathetic nervous system is stronger than your sympathetic nervous system. You can turn off your own anxiety response by learning how to breathe more regularly. Everybody can learn how to do that. And the reason why anxiolytics are benzodiazepines, they're the medications that we use to treat anxiety. The reason that those work is because they actually put the sympathetic nervous system to sleep so that you don't feel so anxious. But people can learn to do that for themselves by learning how to regulate their breathing more completely.
So if I listen to you and I fall asleep, does that
Yes.
mean you're relaxing for me?
I would say yes. I think you're probably going to say that that's not true.
I don't know that you are the defining element.
I would like to believe that my
I know you
calm,
would, yeah.
mellifluous tones are so soothing
Dulcet, yeah.
that they activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And
So I come in to see you because I'm having stress and anxiety in my life, and you just talk all that talk. You get out a big chart and a flow chart on the wall, and you talk to me about the parasympathetic.
I actually have one of those.
I know you do, believe me. So then I fall asleep, and you wake me up and say, that'll be $135.
That's right.
Come back next week, we'll do it again.
And we'll do it all over again.
All right. That'll help.
So, but you've actually then experienced this in your life when you had the virus. That's exactly what these people told you, is that if
Yeah.
you activate that parasympathetic nervous system, you're going to be calm and you're not going to be freaking out.
No, what they told me was if you exhale, you make room to inhale.
Yeah.
If you keep inhaling, it can't go anywhere, you'll pass out.
So they said that in different language, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a little bit less complete than what I said, but
Well, I think at that point,
it's what you needed to hear.
We're not having
That's
a
right.
professionally clinical conversation.
That's right.
They were just trying to help me stay alive.
So
Are you breathing?
you did that, but you did use breathing as a way of instilling calm in your
Oh, I
clients.
still do. And myself as well.
You just didn't.
But I don't call it
Tag it
meditation,
that way.
and I
Right.
don't do it in a ritual way.
Right.
I've learned when my body tells me it works better if you just slow down here. To slow down.
And slowing down is another form of controlling that breathing.
Yeah.
So you want to breathe if you're going to try and any of this.
I remember, it was a cartoon, Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah.
When I was a child, we used to watch Foghorn Leghorn. And Foghorn Leghorn was a big white chicken, rooster. And when he would get angry and get agitated, he'd turn bright red and he would explode. And so somebody taught him to count to 10. And so when he'd get angry and he'd get agitated, he'd count to 10, and he'd flood red, and then he'd count, and you'd see it like go down like a thermometer. And if he was not really self-disciplined, he could do it 2, 4, 6, 8, and it would be red, white stripes. So cartoons educate us
Yeah.
visually.
Sure.
As visual learners. So every time we talk about breathing that way and counting to 10 and counting to 5,
You see
I see
foghorn,
foghorn
leghorn?
Yep.
Yeah. But you were using that technique.
Yeah.
And whether you were tagging it that
I don't
way or
have to
not.
understand it to use it, Michael.
Right.
I respect it if it works. If you find it to be useful, then I want to use it as a tool to enhance your self-control, your mastery, your sense of accomplishment.
But another aspect of this that I think it's really important for people to hear if you're thinking about trying to find ways of regulating your breathing to instill calm, what you want to make sure that you're focusing on is breathing into your abdomen. Most of us breathe very shallowly into our chest.
Right.
And that's where we don't have it. So then you don't have enough capacity. If you're breathing shallowly into that chest, then you're going to run out of room for the air. So you want to make sure that you're breathing as deeply into your abdomen. If you want to kind of monitor that, what you do is put your left hand on your, it doesn't matter what hand, one hand on your abdomen, one hand on your chest.
And rub with one and pat with the other.
No.
Oh.
See which one moves when you're breathing. If the hand on your chest is moving when you're breathing shallowly. If the hand on your abdomen is moving when you're breathing, you're learning how to breathe deeply into that abdomen, and that's going to give you greater capacity
So my father
to hold
was a
that air.
gambler. And he would say, you're trying to make 8 the hard way with a pair of 4s. There's a lot of other ways to make 8. When I've got a client that's doing that, I don't need to explain all that to them. I just get them to breathe with me, and I'll breathe.
So you model the behavior for
absolutely.
them
Yeah.
as a way of conveying the information,
Match rhythms, make change.
which is something that a lot of therapists I don't think appreciate as much as they should, which is the extent to which mimicry is a human condition. So if you are agitated, your client's going to be agitated. If you're breathing deeply, your client's going to breathe deeply. So you would go in by matching their breath, and then you would
Go
change
where they are,
your
try to bring them
breath,
back with you.
and you wouldn't even say anything.
Same thing you learn
But
about doing.
they
dealing
would
with-
sympathetically then start matching your breath, because that's what people do.
Well, and I would say, breathe with me. Just breathe with me. And I would say, breathe in, breathe out. And then sometimes I would do hypnosis and use breathing as a way to induce a trance for relaxation. Teach them to do that on their own. So yes, I may laugh and make fun of some of this terminology, but you use those things if they work, if they're appropriate for the individual client.
Well, we've talked many times about the stress level in society today.
Yeah.
I don't know if living is more stressful today than it was in the West when you could get killed by a dust storm. But I do know that we are bombarded with more information today than we ever have been. And I think that that makes people seem to be more intelligent, whether we actually are or not. But I think that we now have been conditioned to believe that we have to pay attention to the information. And if we don't, we're going to miss something. And I think that that is creating a mentality where everything has to work fast, it has to go smoothly, and if it doesn't, then something's wrong, and that trains us to breathe real shallow and into the chest. And I think that that is the state of most of us, not to mention, if you are overweight, it's going to be harder to breathe into the abdomen. And so I think that as obesity becomes a greater and greater national melee, that also contributes to that shallow breathing. And it really takes concerted effort to force yourself to breathe into that abdomen and to learn to become comfortable with that. But the more that people practice it, so if they come to the office, what I'm afeared of is that if a client comes to the office and you teach them to breathe more deeply in the context of that therapeutic session, do they then generalize that and take that into their lives outside of the office?
Eventually, but I don't want them to learn too fast
Because you want
come
to
back
stay in business.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But so that's why I think that, or at least that's another reason why I feel like that giving them that knowledge
Once
base.
they begin to demonstrate a sense of mastery,
then yeah,
then
they'll do it on their own.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely 100% true. So, I did not know this respiratory virus story.
Yeah.
Did that ever reoccur, or was it just a
No,
one-time
it was a
thing?
one-time.
Okay. And did you follow that individual's advice? Do you now find that exhaling creates that sense of calm? Do you find yourself now doing that automatically without thinking about it?
No,
Okay.
because it doesn't happen often enough to be an issue. But if I start to feel a difficulty, then I'll slow it down and remember what I was taught.
And so I believe, and what I encourage my clients to practice, and if it doesn't work for them, then you don't have to keep doing it, is that the more that you practice these kinds of things, the more that it becomes automatic, so that you will actually do it
Yeah.
without thinking about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so anybody who really is trying to find opportunities to control their anxiety without medication in a way that is going to teach you mastery of your own life and your own environment, the more that you practice these things, the more automatic that it will become. And I think over time, the more that you will see positive calming benefits.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us through the website, which is psychwithmike.com. You can send us messages there, ask us questions. You can give us information about you or let us know topics that you would like us to talk about. If you want to do us a favor, you can go on YouTube, find us at Psych with Mike, and subscribe to the channel there. That would be greatly appreciated. You can go on Apple Podcasts, find us at Psych with Mike, and leave us a comment and a rating, and that helps other people find the show, which we really, really appreciate as well. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.